Hi, everyone, and welcome to the third training here on the 365 First channel. I'm Ann Bernard, the CEO of 365 First and the master of First Time. So, as a refresher, if you haven't watched the previous two training, I recommend that you do that. So, the first training I did was on the 5 reasons why self-development doesn't work. So the reason why I did that is that I want to highlight the challenges of self-development. But then the following training, we covered the 3 reasons why self-development is necessary and quite frankly, very awesome. So those two previous training get you in the right mindset to be excited and be down to earth and aware of what you're getting yourself into when you do self-development. Now, tonight we're going to talk about the formula for finding your own solution. Before I get into that, a reminder, I am streaming live via Zoom. So the intent is to invite you. I don't have anybody on with me, so I'm going to take the headset on off. But the intent is to have you come on live with me so that you can ask questions and that we can get into a conversation once the training is over. So I'm also tracking it here on YouTube. So if you do have some question, you can also drop those in the stream on YouTube. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll get into tonight's training. Today's training. All right, so it is called Find Your Own Solution. There is no one size fits all answer. Okay, here we go. So, why do you want to find your very own solution versus just trying to attempt to follow somebody else's concept, somebody else's way of getting it done, or somebody else's plan? And that's because you constantly have to take who you are as part of the equation. So, who you are needs to be factored in if you're going to be successful at what you are trying to achieve. So, whether it's a goal, your self development, following a dream, pursuing your purpose, whatever mission that you're on, whatever it is you're trying to accomplish, you're trying to improve, you're trying to change, you need to put yourself at the center of it. You, who you are, because that is what you have at your disposal to make it happen. It's also the reason and the way to always know where you're starting from. So finding your own solution clearly defines where you're starting from based on who you are. And then you never really you don't want to you don't want to move forward in trying to uh, complete a goal, self-development, or anything without having a plan to follow. Now, I covered in one of the other training that you want to be very flexible in your plan, but you want to have a plan that you are following. All right, so okay, so this is how to find your own solution. I just had David join me, so I'm going to put my headset back on in case he wants to chat with me. All right, so as I mentioned, this is about finding your own solution in order to pursue your goal, your dream, your purpose, to be successful at anything that you're trying to do and anything that has to do with self-development. So we're going to cover the steps being establishing your foundation, knowing your driving forces, knowing your priority, establishing your priority, understand your resources, the mechanics and the requirements for what you're trying to achieve, and then you want to execute and test your theories. Sorry, I was just checking, making sure there's nobody else in the waiting room. Don't forget, if you want to join via Zoom, if you want to join the training via Zoom, please do so by letting me know, and we'll get you the link to the Zoom that we're on. All right, so your foundation are the things you need to know and be clear about yourself and who you are. It's the starting point to everything. So what is included in your foundation is your self-awareness, your mindset, and your thinking process. So your success starts with having the right foundation. It's your starting point, and it's everything that you're going to build on. So what this is a very busy, very busy slide, and I'm barely going to cover it. And that is because we're going to do so much training on each and every one of these points, because there's absolutely no way that everything that's on the slide can ever be covered in one training. Actually, all the portion of your equation requires multiple additional training, which we will do on this channel. So be it through the How To Fridays, these bi-monthly training sessions, the other videos that we make, the team is here to educate you on all of this. So, I'm starting out by giving you all the big pieces, and then we're going to get into each of those components. But we usually in establishing your foundation in your self-awareness is your conscious knowledge of your own character, your feelings, your motives, and your desires. It covers everything about who you are. And I'm not talking about what's your favorite color, what's your favorite food, who's your favorite actor. I guess that's important information, but it's not very relevant to who you are, what motivates you, what drives you, what gets in your way. So your fears, your comfort zones, you have personality traits that help and assist in the achievement of your goals. You have some that might, hinder and hold you back. And depending on what the goal is, it can flip flop. There are certain times that my being stubborn gets in the way. There are certain times that my being stubborn is something that I get to leverage because it actually helps me to accomplish my goals. So you need to understand those finer points of who you are and how, under circumstances, situation, different variety of stress, how who you are is impacted. That is an extreme level of self-awareness and knowledge of who you are. So your fears, your comfort zone, personality traits, strengths and weaknesses, any unresolved pain and issues, which then tie into the scripts that you tell yourself. Who influences you? Who has influenced you? Who has impacted you? Who influences you and impacts you now? We're going to teach you how to make an influence tree. It's a little bit like a family tree, but it's an influence tree to get that understanding of who has influence over you, who you have influence over, because both of them have ways of impacting you and driving you. So, what do you listen to? What do you read? What echo chamber are you part of? Maybe on purpose, maybe, over time, and you don't even realize it, you've entered into an echo chamber and you are now blindsided or blinded by that, which means you can be blindsided by how it's impacted you. So, what drives you, your values, your motivator, so much to the foundation of your self awareness. All right. So, now when we're talking about your mindset, do you have a growth or a fixed mindset? Right? Do you see the possibility that you can change if you put the effort into it? Or do you think that who you are is who you are and that's never going to change? And again, for some areas of your life, you might consider that the possibility of growth exists, and some other areas you have a fixed mindset. So it's not, what's not talked about when we talk about self-development. That's what we want to do on this channel, is help you realize just one, how broad, and two, how minute self-development is about. So, and that's why you have to find your own solution. You have to understand yourself in every areas of your life. So, are you an optimist, a realist, or a pessimist? Same thing here. In some situation, you might be more optimistic, and some others, you might find yourself being more of a pessimist because of past experiences and the patterns and script that have developed from that. So once you understand that, all of the buckets and all the circumstances around it, then you can start working on it, right? What's your outlook on life? So there's the growth and fixed mindset, but then there's a general outlook on life. Do you think life is out to get you? Do you think life is a competition? Do you think life is magical? What is your mindset towards life? Do you believe that the universe conspires to help you? Or do you believe it conspires to, get in your way? Do you believe you can be lucky in life? Do you believe that you have to be born lucky to have luck in life? What is your mindset about life? How much grit, perseverance do you have? Are you a proactive person or you're a reactive person? Again, in some aspect of your life, you might be proactive, and some other, you might be reactive, or you might generally speaking be proactive in every aspect of your life. Very rare individuals are like that. So vast majority of people find themselves to be more in the reactive mode. And then, some of these you need some comparison. I hate comparing anyone to anybody else. And I work towards never comparing myself to anybody else. But sometimes you need to weigh that in a little bit so that it offers you perspective, right? Are you a dreamer? Are you a doer? You know, Other very big factor on how successful can you really dream big. Maybe even you're pretty good at creating a plan, but you're not a doer. You don't execute. Or are you good at taking actions, but you don't know how to plan? You're ready to go. You just never know what to do, and then you're in reactive mode. So it all you're going to hear me say this expression a lot. It constantly racks and stacks. You need to understand how you're racking and stacking everything. So then we go into your thinking process. So your programming, your patterns, the scripts that you've told yourself. I tell you what, when I reclaimed the title entrepreneur over a year and a half ago, it'll be 2 years in the spring. When I was an entrepreneur for a few years, and I had multiple failures, which eventually led me to quitting. And then I took an entire decade away from doing anything that was entrepreneurial. Well, when I left those failures and quitting at something for the first time in my life and having failed so many different ways, yes, I learned a lot. But I failed, and I failed big because I do things in a big way. Well, that created a script. And the 10 years that I traveled the world and just enjoyed myself, guess what? I was living off a completely different script, and everything was great. Then I reclaimed the title entrepreneur. Then I got back into the entrepreneurial roller coaster, and that script started playing. And and it's deep rooted. So now I have to rip the pieces of that script, and I have to understand, how is it, I know how deeply is it in my belief system now, right? So what do I need to tear up? And when I tear it out, how do I replace it with something else? And how do I can, if I don't see the results of a new script, then how do I imprint that new script into my mind, right? Because my brain understands one way because it has lived that one way over and over and over in business. And now I want it to do something different. So we have multiple scripts like that our brains, that's what they've experienced, that's what they know, that's what it's learned, and that's what it plays. So you need to know all of your scripts and all your patterns, your belief system, right? And then there's what you believe, there's the actions that you take, which one is validating what? How are you confirming the things that you actually don't want to believe anymore? And it gets, yes, it's deep psychological stuff that you need to start bringing to the surface. Okay, and your self-talk. And so your belief system, how you talk to yourself, when something happens, how you address it, how you interact with it, the lies you tell other people, the lies you tell yourself, and then the denials. Denial is bliss, let me tell you, right? So you can't address moving forward, and you can't progress, and you can't grow if you're stuck in denials, if you're stuck in certain lies and certain patterns and belief system. So this is a heavy, heavy slide with many things that we will cover on the channel again in the months and the year to come. All right. Hi, David. How you doing? You're muted.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah. Here
All
we
right.
go.
Yeah, I'm
All
doing
right.
good. This is good stuff. I just asked a question on the chat there to see how that comes through.
Oh, you know what? I don't. Okay, I will let you monitor the chat. If you see questions from others, let me know. Michael, welcome.
Hi.
All right, so we got 2 team members on board. All right, let me continue. Let me drive on. We got lots to cover. Okay, so the other thing to have awareness about are the driving forces. So as you are creating your solution, so imagine yourself, and this is why I really like this slide, the slide deck, and I got it from Canva, and I think it's a free one. So I you I recommend, if you're watching this is a good thing that you can use, because you can kind of start making your own board. So you can make your board for foundation and start answering all of these questions in your board. Because when you pick a goal that you're trying to achieve, and then you take the goal and you pick off of this slide everything that is applicable to that goal, and then you get to the next one. You create your next deck, which is your driving forces, and then you'll be able to pick up your why, your internal inspiration, your external motivation that are going to apply to that specific goal, because you want to make your own solution specific to and individualized to everything, to each and every goal that you have, to the pursuit of your purpose, to each and every aspect of your dreams, and so on and so forth. And another training we'll do, that we touch on a lot in this, but we'll get deeper in, is the actual planning process. All right, but let's get into this. So the driving forces starts with the why, having a very clear why, what you're taking this undertaking, and then everything that you'll need in order to boost you, to keep you going as you are executing on your plan, on your solution. So your why, like I said, your why statement, it keeps you focused, inspired, and reminds you why you even started in the first place. Now, why statements, you might start and then realize things change, and then this goal is no longer relevant. So it's good to, if you're stalling at something, it's good to go back. This is why you want it written out. This is why you visually want an understanding, because then you can go back and say, this is no longer relevant. I can let it go. You're making the conscious decision that you're letting go because you're pursuing something else. And we're going to get to priorities, because it's part of this equation. But having that why statement keeps it fresh, keeps that it's one of those driving forces. The other driving forces are your internal sources. So this goes back to your foundation. What about your personality traits and who you are becomes a driving force towards accomplishing your goal? So I'll give you an example. I have been wanting to successfully fast for a long time because of the health benefits and because I'm an emotional eater and I have tried so many different ways of solving my emotional eating and I failed at it. So I know me and the way that I function, if I can narrow my feed time, I will respect that because once I set my mind to something and it becomes a habit, it's solidified in who I am, then it's good, it's solid. Like, I will stick with it, and it doesn't require as much discipline as putting it in place, but once it's in place, I become stubborn, and I stick to it. So and it's also being stubborn, so that's personality trait that has paid off tremendously in accomplishing this goal. So, I tried, I tried, and I tried fasting, and I would get so moody, so angry, so low energy, and I couldn't stick with it. It required so much discipline. It required so much patience. It just wasn't working. And I was listening to different experts and the guidance that they were giving, and it just wasn't working. And I applied this concept of creating my own solution. I know me and I know what works for me. So I started applying that. And then I leveraged being stubborn. So every time it didn't work, part of me would actually say to people, fasting is just not for me. Fasting is just not for everybody. But deep down, I was stubborn. I'm like, I want it to be for me. Dang it. Like, I want to be able to do this. So I would go back and try again, listen to another expert, and then try, what they were saying, and then they would fail. So I created my own solution, which eventually worked. But the personality trait that got me through is not a little bit of self discipline was at play, but it was my stubbornness. So I tapped into that and it paid off. My self talk was part of that. Like, I know the benefits and I'm gonna get to this. Like, it wasn't even like I can do this. It was, you know what? I'm I'm gonna do this. It was truly being stubborn. And so and journaling. So there's some internal sources that you have available to you that you want to tap into to help you, drive the goal forward. Some external sources that are available to you, well, hopefully friends, family, videos, trainings like this, books, getting, that expertise to help you out, professionals, life coaches or different coaches or a different expert that you require as external sources that are going to keep you focused, they're going to keep you driving forward, they're going to keep you inspired, keep you motivated. And then an accountability partner can also help with that. So as you're creating your solution, figure out what your driving forces are for each and every one of your goals, for each and every one of your pursuit. All right. So priorities, you need to be clear about your priorities as you're creating your solution. So you have fixed, flexible, and floating priorities. Now, your priorities are going to be key to how you allocate your resources. So you want to be clear on how you prioritize, because as we'll talk about resources, the vast majority, they're finite. There's only so much that is available to you. So to find your own solution and be successful, then you need to know how you're prioritizing. So your fixed priorities usually are dictated by outside forces. So you have fixed priorities with your work, your family, and those types become fixed priorities. There might be a little bit of flexibility, or they can become floating priorities to some respect. Like entrepreneurs are notorious at making family a floating priority. It's probably not ideal, but sometimes for maybe a short period of time, something that should be a fixed priority becomes a floating priority because, again, short period of time, a different priority has to come into place because it's very specific to what needs to be accomplished. But your fixed priorities, usually outside forces kind of dictate those. Your flexible priorities are pointed based on your selection, your desires. So usually, you'll have your fixed priorities and then your flexible priorities. You decide what matters to you most. And again, it's going to be tied to your resources. Your floating priorities, I gave you an example. It might be something that for a short period of time, it's a priority that is floated up or it's floated off the list, but it's beyond flexible. It's floating based on circumstances and some of your other resources. So clarity as you're setting your solution on what the priorities are between all of the solutions that you're creating because of all the goals that you have towards achieving something that's even bigger. All right, so your resources. Your resources are the things that are available to you to meet your goal, your dream, whatever it is you're trying to do. You have internal resources, personal, external resources. So like I mentioned, resources, they're finite and they're a lot of them are frequently changing and moving targets, especially your internal resources. So your internal resources, your health. Your health is a resource. As soon as you get sick, real fast that you're down for the count. You just lost a critical resource to help you accomplish what you're trying to do. So treat your health as a resource. Each of your resource can be maximized and then can be improved. And then it can also be drained and completely exhausted. So your health, your energy, your patience, we only have a certain amount of patience. Add enough stress, stress goes up, patience goes down, right? So you need to have that self-awareness. You need to have that knowledge about yourself, how your resources fluctuate with each other. Your willpower, self-discipline, also willpower and self-discipline. Find resources. If you have multiple goals that you need willpower and self-discipline and you're trying to execute those all at the same time, then you're probably going to spread yourself that resource of self-discipline too thin, and then you will not accomplish any of the goals because you have not properly use and assign the resources to your priorities. So if you have multiple goals, what are your priorities for those goals? And then what's going to be the application of that? So example, trying to nail down fasting while building a business under the stress of being an entrepreneur. I've done bodybuilding. I have lost over 50 pounds and stepped on stage. When I was doing that, I was going to school and I was living a pretty low stress life. So all my resources were partly dedicated to just being able to stand being hungry, training, and be extremely disciplined to step on stage. Now I find myself in this space where there's a lot of stress about being an entrepreneur. There's a lot of stress with COVID, right? So I understand the stress, the discipline that is required because everything I do is self-driven. If I don't, no one is telling me to get anything done. So it is all self-driven. Now, on top of that, I was placing fasting. I was placing something that was zapping my energy, that was making me hungry, that was making me unable to think, unable to focus because of hunger. So I had to cut myself some slack somewhere. And then I had to prioritize. So I decided to prioritize the fasting in order to get my emotional eating and my diet and my health in place so that I would be in a stronger position for the entrepreneurial roller coaster. So I made, I had to make that decision. And so certain things did not progress as fast as I wanted it to because I ran out of a resource because it was being applied to something else. But I also knew once I had the fasting down, then that would be something that would no longer require that resource. I would be able to shift it somewhere else. So again, I had to find my own solution to the fasting, and then my own solution to how that was impacting everything else. So you need to be able to see everything that you're trying to accomplish that way. And this is what this is about. Then you have your personal resources. So those are money, how much money you have, how much time you had, your knowledge base, and your skills. You can always make more money. Time is definitely finite. 24 hours in a day, that's it. And then if you want to gain more time, then you might sacrifice sleep. Well, how does that sacrifice sleep impact your other resource of health and energy, right? Again, like in my brain, I don't quite have it down on paper, but someday the 365 First app will do this for you. It will track your resources, but you should have that somewhere in your mind. You should have some sort of, okay, I am getting drained on this resources. My energy is down. I'm starting to get sick, right? So that you can go ahead, then make changes and tweaks. All right, so external resources is the support that you can get from outside help, advice, and mentorship. So someone can come in as an external resource and really provide you the mentorship or the advice that is going to save time, that is going to enhance your knowledge, that's going to add to your skill set. So external resources are pretty priceless when you find the right one. So those are your three type of resources that you need to put into your equation. All right, now we have the mechanics. So far, while we've touched a little bit on external things, a lot of it came back to you, like who you are and what is in your control. The mechanics is a lot of what is outside of your control and outside sources. So let's take being an entrepreneur as an example. So being in business, you have process and procedures that make being in business one that have to be followed, whether that is incorporating your company, opening a banking, having insurance, or different things. So those are the mechanics of being an entrepreneur. There are requirements, and then there's knowledge and experience that all plays into the mechanics of a goal. So the process procedures, usually they provide the way. They're designed to assess and usually have to be followed. So usually process procedures, not a whole lot of leeway around that. You need to be aware of what they are. You might have to employ your resources. So you might have to learn and increase your knowledge of process and procedures, which is going to be taking up some of your time and some of your energy. So you need to be aware. And a lot of this, when we're talking about the mechanics and depending how big your goal or your dream or what you're trying to accomplish, this can be pretty massive. And this is where you're going to start touching on what, you don't know what you don't know. So sometimes you embark on pursuing something, and until you're in it, you just don't realize what the requirements were, what knowledge you included to have that you don't have yet. So then you have to go back and you have to account for that. But the more aware you are, the more you put into your solution, then the better off you're going to be. So the requirements are the things that you're going to need in order to be able to proceed ahead. And then the knowledge includes, facts, information, and skills that are required for what it is you're trying to achieve. So, wanted to build my business, wanted to make my first million. There's so many things on this slide that have to go into, finding my own solution that are dictated for me. Like I have to do these things to, legally be good with the IRS and all of that stuff where I'm going to have to need external resources to help me with that. Or, if I don't have the money for the external resources, then I have to invest the time into learning it. Again, this is where you're balancing what is available to you to achieve what you're trying to do. Okay. All right. So finally, once you're, this is this is part of finding your own solution, but it's once you have everything else, and this is a huge, everything is kind of getting you into the planning process. Let me just say that. Like we'll get into the finer aspect of the planning process, like I said, but a lot of this, when we do the training on the planning is going to sound familiar, but part of finding your own solution in order for you to be successful, it's important that you include the milestones, that you measure your progress, and that you evaluate. So establish milestones with timeline, so if you're actually progressing. So if now for this one, I'll go back to my fasting example, right? So my first milestone was a 16-hour fast. Well, that was not happening. So then I had to back up my milestone to a 12-hour fast. So 12-hour fast, let me do that for a couple of weeks. I'll do for a lot of my solutions, I know that I need to baseline things. So, because once I've baseline, then I stop using my resources like willpower and self-discipline, because now it is baseline. Once it becomes a habit, it's baseline. So a couple of weeks, 12 hours. I was then able to actually move to the 16-hour. Now, I'm eating whatever I want. So I could not restrict what I ate in my feed window because I didn't have the self-discipline and willpower to do that, which means I was not eating the best food. I was not maximizing the health benefits, but I was willing, because it's all, I needed small victories to know that I was progressing. So once I had the 16-hour fasting down, then I cleaned up a little bit what I was eating, and I kept going with the 16 hours. And I did that for almost 2 months. Again, baselining it. I was able to do that. And while I was baselining, I had a little bit more energy to put towards something else. So based on the other projects that I had, I was moving that target. And then, in December, I decided, okay, I'm switching it over to 18-hour and 6-hour feed. Again, I can eat anything I want in the 6-hour. I'm going to do it during the holidays. I know it's probably going to be because of that, because I made that shift, it's going to be slow, and I made the shift, and now I'm in week 3, and it's paying off, and not I can actually go 18 hours without wanting to eat my arm off and not wanting to kill anyone, and I don't go into complete shutdown to where I can't focus, I can't think, I can't do anything. So I know my progress has worked. So those were my milestone, and I knew how to measure that progress. So you want to create your milestones, point the timeline. Don't, as you create your own solution, so this is text theory. I said evaluate everything. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, but I didn't I'm like, I'm going to do this for a few weeks and see if it works. And then if I feel like I'm baseline, I will move forward. If not, I'll go longer. So I had flexibility in my timelines because I knew I could do that. So because I understand me. So you have to figure out what's going to work for you. Identify how you measure your progress. What does progress look like? And that's pretty important, because if you're following your purpose or your dream, what does it look like? How does it evolve? What does the end look like? Or do you even get to the end? What does the journey look like? How do you know you're on the journey? And it's a journey that's actually moving forward instead of one where you're standing in place. So you need to have clarity around that, because it, at the end of the day, if things are staying the same, Your solution is not working, which then goes to the next one. Evaluate everything. And I meant to add to this slide, not just evaluate, but question everything. So question if things are working, especially when you go back to your milestone, your progress. Is this working? Am I being the most effective at this? Always going through something good to do in the morning is to, go through not just your day, but your plans, the things that you have identified that you're working towards. And are you moving forward? I have my coffee cup that always says, there's a better version of me waiting to wake up tomorrow based on what I do today. So that's something I live by. It lines up to my dream of what I'm trying to do with 365 First. It lines up with the way that I want to get back into shape, the things that I want to experience, the places I still want to see, the experience I still want to have. It's constantly, is it aligning? Is it paying off? And I evaluate, I question everything constantly. All right. So before I get into the closing slides, Michael or David, do you guys have anything to say? Do we have any questions anywhere?
I was monitoring the chat, and there's a couple of Michael and I shared a couple things, and that was it. Let's see if there's anything else there.
Anything you'll personally want to add?
I was just making a comment about how the influence tree that you mentioned. I was thinking about how that can dovetail with our scripts. That scripts that we play, stories that we play in our head, can not only be coming from us, but be coming from people that we might be placing on that influence tree. That people who we value, people who we listen to a lot, can maybe implant or insert scripts in our head and drive us in certain directions. Maybe good, maybe not so good. So I was wondering if you had any comments on that.
Yeah, I definitely think once we present the influence tree, that's something that we'll look into adding to it. Absolutely. So, what script did you pick up with that person? How much influence they have on you, they need to realize what they believe in because they're passing that to you. And then when you look at who you influence, that what you believe in, especially if you're a parent or you're a mentor, you're passing on your script to somebody else. Are you passing to them a valid, good script? Are you teaching them how to create their own script, their own realities from their experiences, right? And this is what the 365 First concept or part of what it's about breaking those loops that we create and that we repeat and that we pass on to somebody. So this, again, if you're a parent, this is so critical for you to understand this about yourself because you are passing it on. And the only way that we raise our human potential is that we break those loops, and that when we see it in other people, we help them break their loops. And those scripts are so part of that. Do you have anything, Michael? Anything more, David?
No, it's a lot of information, but at the same point, it's all very relevant, meaning that it takes a lot of work to do work on yourself. Sometimes it's and there's a lot of great information, but yes, breaking that loop of the things that you always fall back into. First times are going to happen from that, and then once you start making that a habit of breaking those loops, they start breaking a lot easier and faster and faster, and that becomes the habit. Then you start to, it's almost like a snowball going down a hill, right? It's like you started with that, you're fasting, right? And it was like little by little, and the snowball started rolling, become easier and easier, and new things that come about will become easier and easier as you move along as well. So
Yeah, exactly. So it like it's one of the things that we said in the three reasons why self-development is necessary and awesome is that it does get easier, and people talk about this, right? Once it becomes a habit, then it becomes easier, and then you can move to the next and to the next. But you can never rest on your laurels though, because we and as much as you rewrite and you reprogram yourself, it becomes very easy, unfortunately, to default back. So even after 15, 20 years of having, doing things differently, having tweaked a certain way I was doing business, still found myself under the right circumstances, the right amount of stress, defaulting back to, previous behavior and habits. And one of the things, one of the reasons why I started first time storytelling is because, I have a tough time sharing and expressing who I am. I discovered storytelling is a way for me to do that. And I was well on my way to having a much easier time with opening up. And then COVID happened. And then, while yes, I can still leverage storytelling and make connection this way, and they're much more powerful connection, the lack of physical contact brought me back to, because I have to make myself go be around other people. COVID, at first was like, oh, this is great. I don't have to force myself to do that anymore. But then it's also, oh crap, it's a setback, because once we can start doing it again, I'm gonna be starting back at zero. So so I'm gonna have to reinvest the resources, remake that a priority based on everything that's going on. But it's going to have to be a priority, because networking as an entrepreneur is crucial. And while yes, you can do it online, it has limited impact compared to what I still think you can do in person, how quickly you can move things along. So yep. But that's also a reality. We're not going to sugarcoat anything here. And that's the reality of growing, of wanting to change. That's life. It's part of, so that's our script, part of the script that we share as a team, or our beliefs about life, that it's, and again, we covered it in the 5 reasons why self-development doesn't work. It's a lot of hard work. So we believe that we're willing to do that hard work. We believe and we know that it pays off when you put in the hard work. It becomes easier as you put in the hard work. So that's the type of stuff we're gonna keep driving into you, to help you understand, to help you add as a script as you continue on your journey of self-development through first time and new experiences. And we'll get more into that too as we keep going. We'll keep doing this, these training. So ultimately, we want you to have fun finding what works for you, to take this solution concept and start. You have to write it out. It's just not something you can do in your mind. So either start writing it out on the computer, get a journal, get a notebook, and start writing all this out as we continue to do this training, and we'll continue to help you figure it out. A great way to get our help is to follow us on social media. And I also want to say that we offer a program where it's called Maximize Your Journey, and you can access that when I do the updates on the description for this video. I will it's in there. Actually, it's in the channel on any of the videos. You can go and you can sign up for the Maximize Your Journey program. And so for 6 weeks, you get to spend time with the team going through training, and it's all the things that we talk on this channel at a deeper level. And then you get to leverage the team to get coaching, to get group coaching to address things every day. Every day there's a different topic, a different group. So I'll add a slide for that as we keep doing this training. As you guys are starting to get a feel for how we train, how we interact with you, how we do things, and and how we like to break things down. We give you the big picture, but we break things down, and then we believe in being there for you as you do this. So if you have any questions on how to create your own solution, let us know. And then on Friday, I know it's Christmas, but so how-to Friday on Christmas, I'm still going to release a how-to video, and it's going to be New Year's resolutions, how to make them. So again, I'll give you 7 steps there on how to make your New Year's resolution. And then we're going to have a New Year's resolution challenge for you shortly thereafter. So lots of great stuff coming up and happening. And then we'll see you in 2 weeks where we're gonna start digging into it, right? Why self-awareness is the foundation of self-development. We're gonna get more into the why, and we'll cover some how, and it's our self-awareness will be a how-to Friday as well. So, and for each of that, we're going to look into adding exercises. So with that note, I recommend signing up for the newsletter. So if you go to 365firstchallenge.com and you sign up for the newsletter, then some of these exercises that we're going to start mentioning in the training, we're going to start sharing them via the newsletter. So I'll add some slides as we keep going. So learn as you go, right? So as I'm talking to you, as we're doing this, we're going to keep adding different things that you need in order to get what you're looking for, and be able to contact us, to connect with us, and do this, make this happen as 2021 is around the corner. All right, guys, you all have anything else? No, we're good.
Yeah, you said it really well. So with this, it was really good.
Excellent. All right. Well, I wish both of you a very Merry Christmas. And if you're out there, you're watching this and you celebrate Christmas, I wish you all also a very Merry Christmas.